If you take a look down to my description, there is a link to my Patreon. And at the highest tier, the whale shark tier, you can force me to review something every 3 months. And here we have a patron request. Cinderella III, A Twist in Time. When I got this suggestion, I was like, don't I need to see Cinderella 2 first? And I can tell you, no, you do not. Cinderella 3 was a direct-to-DVD movie made in 2007 that I actually think is like kind of the beginning of the era of Disney doing like deconstructions of their own mythos. Certainly a lot of those have gotten lazily done in the live action adaptations where they're like, oh, this movie had this critique, so we'll address it in the live action version. But like also earlier when we had like Frozen and Moana where they are taking on established tropes from the Disney canon and like addressing those head on. And this feels like it like the precursor to all of that. The premise here is that Lady Tremaine and the ugly stepsisters find out that Cinderella used magic to get to the ball and fall in love with the prince. And they steal the fairy godmother's wand and use it to turn back time so that one of the stepsisters, Anastasia, she gets to wear the glass slipper because they use magic to make the glass slipper fit her foot. The film is basically like, we're going to go ahead and do an alternate timeline, which means since it goes back to after the dance, but before the glass slipper is put on, which means that we don't need to have seen Cinderella 2 because it just got retconned out of existence. But Cinderella... It's been so long since I saw the original movie, I really don't remember that much about it. But she is a character, she has quite a lot to do. She's a very proactive person in the film because she recognizes, wait, no, I'm supposed to be the one to marry the prince. We danced. But they also use magic to erase the prince's memory, so they convince him that... Because, like, they even address the whole, like, why do you need the glass slipper? You saw her when you danced. So, like, and in fact, when he sees Anastasia and they're like, oh, the glass slipper fit, he's like, oh, no, you aren't who I danced with. You don't look anything like her. And then they had to use the magic to be like, oh, you'll forget what Cinderella looked like and you'll remember it was Anastasia. Also, the prince is voiced by the guy who played Spider-Man in the 90s cartoon. And not just is he voiced by him, I think by the end of it, he just straight up becomes Spider-Man because he jumps from a tower to a moving ship below and like swings to safety. He even kind of does like monologues to himself in the way that Spider-Man would in the cartoon. So like when I heard him talk, I was like, oh, I recognize his voice. Looked him up. I'm like, of course it's Spider-Man. And he just straight up is like Spider-Man. The animation in this movie is like really hit or miss. Like sometimes it's actually pretty good, but there's a lot of moments, especially early on, where there's just like no shading on any of the characters. And I get it, it was a direct-to-DVD movie, so I'm not expecting it to have like feature theatrically released production values, but there's a lot of moments where they do proper shading. But especially like early scenes when you want to put your best foot forward and let people know, okay, here's the opening scene. You would think you would want to open with a little bit of higher quality stuff, but actually like the way that the movie opens is some of the cheapest animation that I've seen from one of these direct-to-DVD sequels. And also, there's a weird choice in that Cinderella and the prince are mostly animated through rotoscoping, which if you don't know what rotoscoping is, it means that they draw them over like live action reference material. So they had actors performing all of the actions that Cinderella and the prince would do and then draw over it. But most of the other characters in the film are traditionally hand animated. It's one thing if, you know, obviously the rats and the cat, those are going to be traditionally animated. They're cartoon characters. But it's weird when like they're the only human characters that are rotoscoped and everyone else is animated in a more traditional cartoonish style. It makes them feel separate from the rest of the film. And I understand that Cinderella was rotoscoped in the original film as well. I would need to go back to the original to compare that with like how many other characters were also rotoscoped. Rotoscoping Disney princesses goes back to Snow White. Like, you know, that's a long history of Disney doing that. So like I understand if they're trying to maintain a similar animation style from the original Cinderella that they would maintain the rotoscoping for Cinderella. It's noticeable when it's not all of the human characters, it's just a select few. I think Lady Tremaine might also have been rotoscoped, but she also has a much more exaggerated cartoonish face, like she has a very large jaw. So that's obviously been like, okay, we've got the reference photo, but then we're going to draw the cartoon head on top of that. That makes it look a little less like, oh, you're just straight rotoscoping a human, but like, you know, the Prince and Cinderella are pretty much just drawn straight over the reference models that they were performing with. There's a lot of actually just really funny moments in this movie, like a lot of like good like self-referential stuff, like when the king is like talking to the prince about the whole, you know, getting the woman to wear the glass slipper. He's like, you think there's only one woman in the whole kingdom who wears a size 4.5? And there's a moment where even though the prince has forgotten Cinderella because of the spell, Cinderella's mice friends basically track him down and tell him the story, and he's just like immediately is like, of course, magic's why I forget them, because like he knows that like even with the magic spell affecting him to have forgotten Cinderella, he doesn't feel about Anastasia the way he feels he should. But being convinced by a couple of talking mice that there's a magic spell on you trying to get you to marry the wrong woman, if you tell somebody else that, they're going to treat you as crazy, and that's exactly what happens. He's just like, I think I wrote it down as like, I have to go, but you're about to be married. But the talking might say she's the wrong girl. It's a cute moment. And also Anastasia, the ugly stepsister who is being set up to be the one to marry the prince, she's actually a pretty sympathetic character in the movie. And she recognizes that she's just being put in this position where she's not actually getting true love. She wants somebody to love her for her. And even at the end, once everyone is convinced, okay, yeah, there was magic going on, they still end up using magic to turn Anastasia into Cinderella while they've kidnapped Cinderella to trick the prince into marrying the wrong woman. But like, she just realizes this isn't true love. This isn't me. You're not loving me for me. You're loving me because you think I'm somebody else. And that's not honest. And she obviously has self-esteem issues. She's an ugly stepsister, right? She's very, you know, awkwardly proportioned and is drawn ugly, but the film does a lot about she doesn't seem to be a bad person, and she's obviously being manipulated by her sister and mother into this just because they want access to power. And I appreciate that she's not bad because she's ugly, right? That she's also a victim of Lady Tremaine, as Cinderella was. That was actually quite a refreshing thing. Honestly, I'm surprised for a direct-to-DVD Disney sequel at the caliber of writing in this one. I was really impressed with this film, and I would recommend people go watch it. Like, it's on Disney Plus. It's pretty good. Seriously, go check it out. I think it holds up pretty well. The animation's rough in a lot of points, especially in the intro. Like, if you're watching this and go, well, the first 5 minutes are gonna set the tone for me on what the animation's like just hold on a little longer. The animation does get better at certain points, and they do not start with their best foot forward. But I really liked this one. I would recommend it. Hey, thanks for watching. Your view means a lot. Don't forget to toss me a like and subscribe and ring the bell and drop a comment below telling me what you thought of the video. I stream Mondays and Fridays at 5 p.m. Pacific, so catch me live and join in on the convo. You can find all my socials in the description below, and thank you to all my patrons with a very special shout out to my Whale Shark tier patrons Ms. Milena and Hella Vitrum, and my Anemone Friend tier patrons Piftle Cakes and Geek Filter. Your support means the world. Catch you next time.